Thank you, Asian Museum, for having me here to teach this workshop today, teach this class. And thank you all for taking the time out of your day to be part of it. I really appreciate you being here on this afternoon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen right now. Let's see. Let me get the screen up. Second here. All right. And there we go. All right. So first off, all your mics are turned off, so we don't have to worry about making sure your mic is turned off over here. I wanted to go over our agenda for today. I wonder why it's doing that. One second. I just want to make sure this is coming in the right way.
Is it full screen?
It's not. It's oops. It's sharing. It's not sharing the correct screen. Sorry about that.
Oh, would you like John to show from his?
I can do that, and I can give you remote control as well.
Oh no, here it is. I got it.
Okay.
Sorry. All right, here we go. So I just want to quickly go over agenda today. We're gonna go over some introductions real quick. Then we'll discuss short sections discussing community norms. We'll talk a little bit about this course and what the whole point of it is, and then we'll do a bit of reading and discussion, and we'll move into a generative workshop. And at the end, we may not be able to get into breakout groups for these. If that's the case, that'll be fine. But we will do a little bit of sharing at the end, and then we'll close out with some Q&A. And you can feel free to ask questions along the way. It's see how it moves along. So just quickly on the community norms, I thought we can kind of discuss a couple over here. Confidentiality, big one. Whatever's said here stays here. Take what you learn, but not people's stories. One mic, one person speaks at a time. Please be present and attentive to the speaker, and step up, step back. Be mindful of how you take up space. If you tend to speak up, make space for others. If you tend to step back, consider stepping up. And in the chat box right now, if you have any suggestions, please feel free to share those with us as far as community norms go. Would anyone like to share any suggestions for community norms?
Do you want those in the chat box or the Q&A box?
In the chat box.
Okay.
Assume best intent from others. That's great. That's a good one. Support creativity. Yes. Definitely. All right. And, you feel free to just kind of add any as we go. Here we go. And so right now, what I'd like to do is we'd like to go around and let's see. If we can, I'd like to do some introductions to these. I'm going to have to unmute everyone. So this is what we're going to do for introductions. For introductions, please make sure that, to start off, let's make sure that your screen names, if you can, please rename with your first name or your first and last name, wherever you feel comfortable. And if you feel moved to do so, you can add your pronoun, but that's not required. It's only if you feel comfortable doing so. So if you can do that right now, all you need to do is click on the button that says more, and then hit rename, and then you can change it to that. Is anyone having trouble doing that? Oops. Okay. And we're gonna, Tova Green, yes. Did you have a question, Tova?
I don't think people were able to do it, Jason, it looks like.
Oh, it looks like you can. Okay. Well, that's okay. No worries. Then we'll skip that part. If you can't do that, then it's okay. So what we're gonna do then now is we'll just go around, and if you can, say your name, and if you feel like sharing, share your pronoun. And all the check-in question we'd like you to answer is: are you currently feeling more pulled towards or away from poetry right now? And what we want to do is that when we answer this question, we will only answer whether we feel pulled towards or away from. So the reason we're going to do that is we want to be able to yeah, I will I know that someone just noted that talking isn't permitted, but I'll mute and unmute you as we go. And we'll allow to talk and stuff like that. So and I'll call on each person as we go. So if you can, just name and if you so choose your pronoun. And the check-in question is: feeling more pulled towards or away. Please, when you answer this check-in question, just choose to answer either or, because what I would like you to do is to just kind of sit with how you answer this question, observe how it makes you feel, rather than trying to analyze and explain why you feel pulled towards or away from. Okay, in a moment. All right, thank you. So let's first start off with Alden. Alden, I'm going to unmute you. Oops.
What's up?
All right.
So my name is Alden. I use he, him pronouns. And right now I'm being pulled away from poetry.
Okay, thank you. Tova, let's go with Tova next. Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Tova, sorry, I just unmuted you.
okay. My name is Tova Green, she, her pronouns, and I'm feeling pulled towards poetry.
Ali, I'm about to thank you, Tova. I'm going to go to Ali next.
Hi, Ali. Thanks y'all for hosting this and putting it on. They, them pronouns, and I'm feeling pulled towards.
All right, thank you, Ali. And Angie, there you go. Angie, how you feeling?
Hi, I'm Angie Ebba. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm feeling pulled towards.
Okay, thank you. And I have two Anitas here, but let's go with lowercase, Anita with lowercase. Oops, sorry about that. It can't seem to unmute you. Oops.
Hi, how's this?
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Hi, I'm Anita Cadena Sanchez, and I'm pulled toward poetry.
Thank you. And Anita, there's uppercase. There we go. Oops, sorry. Okay, Anita? I got the, which go? Anita, with your screen name, with the uppercase, Anita? Oops. And if you're unable to, this is not working for you, then feel free to put the answer into the chat box. Okay, thanks. I'll come back to you, Anita. Andrea, let me unmute you. Oh,
Hi.
okay. Hi, Andrea.
Am I supposed to introduce myself?
Oh, yes. Your name, pronoun, if you so choose. And are you feeling pulled towards or away from poetry right now?
Andrea, she, feeling pulled more towards, yeah, I've been writing poetry, reading a lot of poetry recently. Just wanting to kind of be, poetry is more in mystery and wanting to be in that feeling.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next, A. Schafer. Let me unmute you. Okay.
Hi, I'm Ann Schafer, and I go by she, her. And I would say at the moment, right, the second, a bit pulled away from poetry.
Okay, thank you. And next, Barbara. Let me try to unmute.
Asked me to unmute myself. I'm Barbara Grant, and I use she and her, and I am being pulled toward poetry even as we speak.
Okay, thank you so much. All right. Okay. Claire, I am going to unmute you right now. Oops, it's not unmuting. There we go. Claire?
Hi, I'm Claire. I go by her, she, and I'm being pulled towards poetry.
All right, thank you very much. Galen?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know how to do the screen share, but I'm very interested in writing some poetry these days.
Great, thank you. And don't you have to worry about doing the screen share. It's whatchamacallit. We would just for this. It looks like we're just only going to be speaking.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
And let's see, Jordan, is that?
Hi everyone, my name is Jordan. I go by she, her, and I'm pulling towards poetry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Linda. Oops, let's wait to unmute.
Is that working? Oh, good.
Yes.
Good. Linda Yamamoto. I'm here because I'd like to be pulled toward poetry, but and it said it's for any level. Because I'd like to be able to express myself that way, but I've never felt comfortable doing it.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering. Okay. And Logan?
Yeah, hi. I'm Logan. I use he, him, his pronouns, and right now I'd say I'm pulled more toward poetry.
Okay, thank you. And M. the Graph?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Madi. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm feeling pulled towards poetry in this moment.
All right, thank you. Michael.
Hi, I'm Mikkel. I use he, him
Mikkel.
pronouns. I am pulled away towards poetry at the moment.
All right, thank you, Mikkel. All right, Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam. I use he pronouns, and I'm feeling pulled towards poetry right now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and Sandy, it looks like I can't unmute you, so can you put your answer into the chat box? Thank you. All right. Thanks for doing that and indulging me in that, because I just wanted to take a second to just put all of your voices into the room right now, because you're going to be hearing me talking a lot. So we just kind of want to do that real quick and just kind of get a chance to know everyone. And Sandy just answered, and Sandy is feeling pulled away from. And Anita, with uppercase A, are you, I just want to come back and make sure I don't skip over you. Are you able to check in?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, great. I actually have you on my computer, so there's only one Anita, and on my
Oh,
iPhone.
there's one. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
Okay,
for the
that's why.
confusion. But I like
do
my
the same thing.
And it's an old-fashioned computer. So
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. And Tova, I saw your hand is up again. Did you have a question before we move on? Okay, it's okay. So, hello.
Hi, I'm Lishka. I'm here too, and I'm being pulled towards poetry. I use she, her.
Oh, Lishka, sorry about that. I thought I'd.
No problem.
Apologies. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thank you for doing all that. I just wanted to do this real quick. I said to bring your voices into the room for us to be able to kind of hear each other and know that we're all here together. And you know, and thank you for doing that. Also, you know, and one of the things like in this introduction with this question is, that I wanted to do was just kind of have us really kind of sit, rather than, I think, you know, when we want to answer a question like this, we're automatically pulled towards wanting to analyze and explain what this answer is and what it means, rather than just to kind of sit and allow the moment to allow the answers to come to us. And that's one thing we're going to be talking about a lot, because a lot of this, with a lot of this course is going to have to deal with is the act of observation, and kind of how observation in poetry, you know, leads to discovery. And so, you know, I also wanted to do a little intro on myself. So this is this is me. My name is Jason Bayani. I use he, him pronouns. I'm MFA graduate from St. Mary's College. I got, you know, heard my bio, I've written 2 books, and I'm also a performer solo theater show called Locus of Control. I'm also a DJ on the side, or like I said, I try to be one. I'm not like an expert or very great at it, but I love doing it. And I'm also the artistic director at Kearny Street Workshop, one of the oldest Asian American arts orgs in the country. And so a lot of, you know, why I wanted to kind of put this class together was that I wanted to create a course that kind of involves what I believe to be my core tenets in constructing a poem, and, you know, share that with people, you know, who maybe are either at, you know, the beginning of their writing careers, or have more casual interest in poetry, or people who have a strong interest in poetry, and, you know, may gain something from you know, what these kind of core tenets I built my poetry around. And my core tenets in constructing a poem are observation, discovery, which we'll be focusing on today. My other tenet is musicality, and we talk about musicality. For me, you know, how we make language sound within the construction of our sentences, within how we make words play against each other. That is just as much of that is just as important in the construction poem as any other aspect. We also want to talk about form, and form is another tenet. And when we talk about form, we're not just talking about you know, things like sonnets and um, things like sonnets or sestinas or like haikus, although that's a big part of it. But the fact that like when we construct a poem, we create a form, whether consciously or unconsciously, every time. And the last tenet is vision. And when we talk about vision, you know, it's similar to when we talk about voice. But for me, like, I think for me, I think that our ways of seeing and our unique ways of seeing are something I'm more interested in when it comes to writing and poetry. And I think that's, for me, a more accurate depiction of what we consider voice to be. And I look at it as vision instead. And so these are 4 of my core tenets. And today we'll be focusing on observation and discovery. And I think I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because with everything that's been going on, you know, like a lot of you, there's, you know, I've been having issues trying to figure out how to deal and adjust, you know, to what our new reality is. And I've had to find or return to things in my past that have helped me, you know, deal with my own mental health, deal with how I get through the world. And one of the big things that I returned to was the meditation practice, which I had, you know, kind of abandoned for a while, which I don't really know why or can explain how that happened. But being able to return to a meditation practice, I do about an hour every day, and it's helped me a lot, especially because I'm an insomniac. You know, I have anxiety issues, and a lot of the meditation practice I've been involved with is a lot about observation. You know, you observe the body from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet and back up and down and back up and down. And all you're doing is observing what feelings exist. And, you know, they talk a lot about in the meditation practice that you don't, you know, you don't, if you feel something that's pleasurable, you feel something that's painful, you know, it's to remain equanimous in it, and to sit with it rather than just kind of like automatically want it or reject it. And I think that's, for me, that's a lot of, in constructing poetry, what a lot of that has been for me, is to be able to observe the moment and to allow it to unveil itself for me. So this is one of my favorite quotes by Franz Kafka. Do not even listen, simply wait, be quiet, still and solitary. The world will freely offer itself to you to be unmasked. It has no choice. It will roll in ecstasy at your feet. And that's, you know, I think that to me is in my practice has been how I've needed, you know, to approach for poetry. I don't look at, you know, I think that poetry, there's a lot of people that approach poetry in different ways, and I don't think there's one exact way to be able to do this. But this is what I can share, and this is what I can teach. You know, I think that, you know, when I talk about these core tenets over here, I put these as the core tenets because underneath are a lot of different tools that we use to make these things happen. So when we talk about rhyming, or when we talk about like metaphor making, those things fall underneath each of these tenets. But the thing is that, like, I think I see a lot of time, one of the things I see people who are trying to make a next step, I think that they focus a lot on the tools rather than the tenets. And I think that, you know, allowing the tools to make these things stronger is kind of like, will help you create stronger poems rather than to focus on the tools to make the poetry. So, all right. So one of the things with observation and discovery, it's simply you. In the class description, I talked about the term poiesis, which is generally thought of to be the act of making. But the thing is that what poiesis really means is to unveil. And so in observation, just like this Kafka quote, that to simply sit and watch, things will reveal themselves to you. And to me, that's what makes what I feel is that's what makes poetry come alive. And that's where because the thing is that if I think there's been a lot of great poems I enjoy that put out like a thesis statement and try to answer the thesis statement, but I think for me what I enjoy best is poetry that allows me to discover, that allows me to see the world new, that remakes the world for me with new eyes. And I feel that comes about through observation and discovery. And before we move on, does anyone have questions about anything I just said? Should we put this in the Q&A or or actually we can do the chat box real quick. I feel like that's easier. We'll use the Q&A box for later. Okay, well, we'll just move on. So to demonstrate, I like to do two different readings. And first of all, I'd like to start with talking about this one poem that I really like. We're going to talk about Javier later. So this is a poem by, let me make sure that when I share this that the sound is coming through. I'm going to share this poem by a British poet named, a British Indian poet, British poet by name of Sunyana Bhargava, who's a scientist. And as a scientist, I was just randomly listening to podcasts one day, and I saw this one for BBC. Oh, I got a question. Logan, I'll answer your question in a second. I was randomly sitting and listening to podcast, and I saw this BBC Arts and Ideas podcast about poetry and science, and I saw it and I was like, I like poetry and I like science, so we'll listen. And I heard this amazing poem, which I can't find anywhere other than this podcast. And I heard this amazing poem, and I just kind of want to share it with all of you. And before I do that, let me answer Logan's question real quick. I wonder, when you're sitting down to write a poem, are you noticing, observing passively, i.e. meditation, then a starting place comes to you? Or do you go in with a topic in mind and then start observing and discovering? And I think you can do either, Sometimes there's something in my mind that's really pressing, and I want to just kind of sit and meditate on it. And other times, just through the act of just kind of things come to me. And so it's it's, if something's pressing on my mind, it's not I'm not trying to come at it where I'm going to sit there and solve it. I'm just going to sit with it. And I'm going to kind of let it come to me, or I'm going to write about it. And in the act of writing about it, it opens up. And that's one of the things that we're going to see in this poem. So one of the cool things about this poem is, part of the poet's job as a scientist is observing galaxy clusters. And it's going to be, I'm just going to play it. Let's make sure, though, I'm going to play a little bit of this to make sure that the sound is okay. Okay, I don't think the sound is playing. Shoot.
When you share your screen, have you clicked the share audio tab at the bottom of that shared screen window?
Okay. Were y'all able to hear that?
No.
No?
Well, what we did hear was the sound echoing back on itself. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard me earlier. If you're sharing your screen currently, you would have to stop sharing it. And then when you
Okay.
share it again, click the small tab that says share computer sound.
Oh, yeah.
And it will come directly from your computer rather than your speaker.
Okay. Let me see. Oh, shoot. Sorry about that.
On a clear night, one can start with a single thumb. The story goes.
We can hear it perfectly.
Let's hear a bit of it. Inaccessible. On a clear night, one can stub the Pleiades with a single thumb. The story goes, 7 sisters who met nightly to dance were chased by the hunter Orion. The smell on him, copper and rust, a thick lasso of his belt chiseling sharp edges into darkness, making it synonymous with danger. The sisters begged Zeus to spare that small corner of moonless solitude into which they eagerly dipped their toes. A logical man, God, threw each sister one by one into the cold wilderness of stars, better off safe rather than happy. Some injustices are seared into being so early on. I studied each of their coordinates young, cross-legged. Years later, I agree that what could be better than giving a name to something so distant? Though we are centuries out of sync, in every blink you remain timeless. But then, dark energy, that peculiar thing moving us all apart, not much is known except that it flowers uncontrollably, like diluting your coffee and never losing its strength, which makes it sound a lot like cancer. But cancer is a cruel word. If I say I lost you to dark energy, that is a better way to go, something otherworldly and mysterious. Which is to say, there is no point waiting for a fateful rebalancing of the scales. Things will not return to what they were. The people will not press flowers into books after they have spent enough decades in ballistic ruin. Do not look to space for answers. In the beginning, the scale spilled in one direction and made everything we will ever know. The oldest women, still known in relation to their chains, a throne, a rock, an eager but bruising hand, until one might live long enough to see the red giant recede like a dust grain flickering into sleep, returning the sky to women, just light years in time. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, that was Inaccessible by Sunyana Bhargava. Yeah, I make sure my let's see. Yeah, I've been really thinking about this poem a lot, you know. And what kind of makes me, like I said, this is a poem that's very much written out of like, yeah, think about how many hours that as a scientist you have to sit there and look at these galaxy clusters, which are, you know, that are not, I mean, like, it's not pictures the way that, like, you know, we think of, you know, I mean, it's obviously not gonna be pictures like they put onto onto like the websites and everything. It's data, right? It's numbers, zeros and ones, and that's what the, you know, that's what just happened to study, to kind of observe you know, these clusters, which means that it's all the stars, the hot gas, and, you know, dark matter, which she talks about in the poem. And you know, the numbers serve as a means to quantify what exists out there, and it reconstitutes it into something that makes sense within our range of understanding, you know. And that, to me, that, I mean, that's not unlike what we're trying to do when we make poems. And I think it's, you know, when she talks about it in this podcast, she doesn't think it's as poetic, the numbers, but I think it is. I don't want to try to interpret the poem for you. I think the poem gives us ample insight into their way of seeing. But this is a poem that's very much about observation. So it begins with a speaker looking up at the Pleiades constellation and then reflecting on the myth, and then drawing a connection to the reality of a lived life and lived experience. And then the process repeats, back to the stars, and this time the process of observation moves on to the idea of dark matter. And then she reflects and then draws another connection to a lived experience. And from here, this opens up a wider observation that moves from the personal to the wider human condition, and discovers a way of speaking to womanhood, of possibly moving against patriarchy. And then all of this comes just from this act of looking at the stars. And makes me, I think about this quote from Kazam Ali, from one of his poems, and I think about this quote a lot. It's something like the farthest mosque is the one within. And when we think about distances, to a certain point, there's a limit to what we can truly conceive, right? But we know there's a distance where we exist in the present to the deepest reaches of the galaxy. And there's also a great distance from here to our subatomic levels. So we observe the great distances within as we do without. And in the act of making poems, we're using all these different tools within language, metaphor making, collaging, imagery, prosody, and more, to find a way to make sense of all the raw data we're having to constantly take in and turn into something deeper and richer than just a vocalization of a feeling. And I think in this we see an observation of the exterior into the interior. And I personally tried looking at all those galaxy cluster data reports, and it's like I can't make sense of any of it. But what's fascinating is that a lot of these pictures we see of the universe are statistic interpretations of that data. But the data that helps them get close to what it can look like, if we were to see it with their own eyes, that's what they're doing. Like, they're interpreting this data and creating a picture of as close as they can of to what it would look like if we would see it in their eyes. And it's these beautiful pictures, right? But in the podcast, one of the things that Sunyana talks about was the part of a job in looking at all the data is to search for the origin of matter and the origin of all matter. And this is the ongoing task in what she has to do. And this process yields, within this process, you have so many discoveries within it. But your ongoing search is always geared towards where does all of matter begin? And that, to me, I feel is, we can make pretty pictures and amazing pictures, but I feel like poetry is more on this journey. And, the pictures I enjoy, but I think, when I look at poetry, I think more in terms of the search. And so, before we move on, anyone have a comment, one comment, question, before we move on to the next one about anything I just said or this poem? Okay, that's all right. You could also just kind of, we could also, if your questions come up, we can answer that at the end later. Okay. So the next poem I wanted to go over was Second Attempt Crossing by Javier Zamora. And this one also has audio, so we're gonna play that.
Attempt crossing for Chino. Second attempt crossing for Chino. In the middle of that desert that didn't look like sand and sand only, in the middle of those acacias, whiptails, and coyotes, someone yelled, La migra, and everyone ran. In that dried creek where 40 of us slept, we turned to each other, and you flew from my side in the dirt. Black-throated sparrows and dawn hitting the tops of mesquites beautifully. Against a herd of legs, you sprinted back toward me. I jumped on your shoulders, and we ran from the white trucks. It was then the gun, ready to press its index. I said, freeze, Chino, para por favor. So I wouldn't touch their legs that kicked you. You pushed me under your chest, and I've never thanked you. Beautiful Chino, the only name I know to call you by. Farewell, your tattooed chest, the M, the S, the 13. Farewell, the phone number you gave me when you went east to Virginia and I went west to San Francisco. You called twice a month. Then your cousin said the gang you ran from in San Salvador found you in Alexandria. Farewell, your brown arms that shielded me then, that shield me now, from La Migra.
All right. That was a poem. That was a poem by Javier Zamora. We got a question in Q&A. All right, that was a poem by Javier Zamora. I'm gonna see if we can try to do. It still doesn't. Yeah, doesn't look like we can do breakouts. Right now, we've been in. What we would like to try to do was to get y'all in the breakout groups, and to get y'all in the breakout groups and to discuss this poem. But it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do that. So what I'd like to do is to take this off here. I think that I'm going to put this, I'm going to put the link to this poem into our chat box. So let me look for, okay. Okay, and what we kind of want to do here is to take a look over the poem and maybe give you maybe about 5 minutes on your own to just kind of write down 2 questions. What is being observed and what is being discovered? And take a little time right now to just kind of, jot down some of these notes for yourselves, and we'll come back into discussion. Okay, let's do about 5 minutes. Oops. Okay, we can go for about 1 more minute. Please feel free to share some of your answers in the chat, and I'll read them back to everyone. Okay, Ali wrote, observing the news of death, news of a death, the memories of a life. Observing the landscape, Claire wrote, observing the landscape, bird, bushes, sand. Observing perhaps this memory and the crucial moments that reveal the selflessness of a companion in immigration. Discovering the gratitude and regret for not expressing it. Great. Thank you, Logan. Ali also added, that which is remembered lives on. The powerful details of our stories. That's a discovery. Thank you, Ali. Okay. A Schafer, comparison of a sparrow and the flight of the savior. You flew from my side in the dirt, black-throated sparrows, and dawn hitting tops of mesquites. Beautifully, you sprinted back and we ran. Lishka, observed, black-throated the sparrow, brown arms, tattooed chest, discovered story of protection. Okay, and I think that's Indra. Rare to see the heroics of people who are gang members, the complexity of people's lives. Okay. So as we're wrapping this up, the reason I look at this is, this is an example of a poem that observes the interior towards the exterior, is that, you know, a lot of poems observe memory. And then memory no longer, when memory is past, memory no longer lives within the exterior, it lives with the interior. And we observe memory a lot to kind of help us come to answers in our external lived world. And I think that in this poem, what you see a lot is that happening, is try to kind of bring out or bring to bear this memory works against narratives that are existing in the external world. And, you know, that's kind of what it's trying to reveal to the reader, is you know, a lived experience that can kind of break through kind of narratives that are currently existing in the world right now. And let's see, Barbara wrote, left with question of shielding internalized. All right, thank you all so much. Anyone have any questions about these readings before we move on? If something comes up later, you could also go to Q&A at the end. Oops. Okay. So now we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna do some, okay, yeah, thank you, Lishka. We're gonna do some writing on our own right now. So that's the point where we're getting to. So what I kind of would wanna do right now is we're gonna start with a bit of a writing warm up. This is just gonna take 5 minutes. When I talk about tools that help enhance you know, our core tenets, one of them is imagery or metaphor making. And I want you to think about, we're gonna do a quick 5-minute exercise. What you think about, where do different emotions live in your body? When I say something like joy or love or courage or fear, where in your body do these things exist? Right? And where does it exist for you? And instead of naming the emotion, what I want you to do is we're gonna write some sentences and we're gonna think about it as this emotion as an action the body performs. So in this, let's try to even like push it a little bit. Let's try not to settle for what's expected. We know you know, love is always thought to live in the heart, right? Well, let's think about love living somewhere else on our body. Where else do you feel it? And, you know, we don't want to settle for what's expected, look for what's unexpected and truthful. Oops, and we have a question. Oops, sorry. And so yeah, let's take about maybe the next 4 or 5 minutes, and we're just going to kind of do a couple warm-ups and write a couple sentences. Here's some examples, like for joy, my fingers illuminate, or love, their tongue blossoms into, and you know, you can kind of go from there. So why don't we do that for a bit, and then please feel free to share into the chat box. And we'll give you about 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. Oh, and just let you know, the suggested prompt will come after. We're just starting with this quick little exercise, and we'll be working on that prompt later. We'll be working a prompt afterwards. Okay, and you can feel free to share examples in the chat box. Just gonna see what everyone else is coming up with. Belly crawling up my throat for fear. Yep, belly crawling up my throat. That's, yeah. Thank you, Angie. My hands attempt to transmute for joy. Mikhail, thank you. Yeah, dope. Jordan, stretches, joy stretches across my face. Okay, for Angie, with courage, feet grow roots. Nice. Lishka, her hips rounded the corner like a race car. Nice, nice, excitement. Sadness sits in my shoulders, Linda. Nice. Claire, for pain, a hawk eyeing me with harsh decision. Right. So let's wrap up. One thing I want you to do when we move on to the suggestive prompt. Oh, Anita, slipping and sliding inside my stuffed mouth. Joy kidnaps my tongue as I raise and smile to greet you, my beloved. Nice. All right. So one thing we want you to do is maybe if you have this, when we move on to our suggestive prompt, is to kind of utilize some of these lines that you might have written and see if they can fit anywhere. All right. You don't have to use them, but like if you can find a place to use them, you know, you have a couple of things that you can add in there. All right. So our suggestive prompt is reflect on the last moment you're amongst a group of people. Where were you? Who was there? Observe the moment and what begins to unveil when we see this moment within the context of now. So what I'd like you to do before you start writing is maybe just sit with this reflection for about, 2 or 3 minutes. All right? Get yourself in a place where you just kind of, just sit and reflect and think on it. And then start writing. And please keep in mind, this is a suggestive prompt. If you feel compelled to go in an entirely different direction, go in that direction. But if the prompt will help you, feel free to use the prompt. But, this is, you are free to do as you so choose. And we're going to go for about 15 to 20, and I'll check in with all of you to see how you're feeling. If you have any questions, just please feel free to direct message me in the chat box. So we're about 15 minutes. Would we like to go another 5? We got a very enthusiastic yes. So let's keep going. Let's go about another 5 minutes. Okay. Okay. We got about 1 more minute. So if you start to wrap up. All right. Okay, so let's start wrapping up. Thank you all for putting in this work. You know, it's a lot of work to write. So I'd like to open it up and see if we could possibly share some of our work. So if you'd like to share, and you don't have to, but if you would like to share, please raise your hand. You can hit the more button and it should be able to, there's the raise hand function. And let's see if we can get a couple folks to share a bit of what they wrote. I see one shared hand from Barbara. All right, Barbara, I'm going to unmute you. And
Okay.
Ali, you'll be next.
Am I unmuted?
Mm-hmm.
Hi. This kind of goes on, so I'll say it fast. The last moment in a group before the virus hit. It may have been having dinner with Charlotte at Belenico. I talked about the fires in Australia and how we escaped. Elizabeth came over and we talked about Nick, my baby, who used to work there, and they knew Bronwyn and little Austin from a time when we lived together before Australia. Oh, there's so much to say about dystopia, Rupert Murdoch, and the fires. It's all there waiting in my shoulders, scratchy breath, eyes beholding hell, basically. And now the late afternoon, light in the restaurant, all the people talking, making wonderful food. Oh, and there is the deciding what to drink, a stranger helping me, and thinking of Sicily right then, layered on top of it all, with the wine I had on Mount Etna, and Charlotte talking about her ethics study group, and the sounds of cutlery, and trying not to listen to conversations nearby. It was glorious. Zoom doesn't give us tapestry, strange memory waters running under it all that are there right in the polenta itself, the wine, the hand and voice sharing it all.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Yes, that image of strange memory waters running under it all. I really like that. It's a really lovely image. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, next we got, let's see, Ali and then Mikhail. We'll go with you after.
The oddities of Upheaval mark the moment. A stamp on the wrist. We are part of the event. Flaming carousel rides spinning on overdrive let us off, but the ground is collapsing. Unpredictable uncertainty upending it all. Yet here we are. A group of some friends, new and old, at my house. It's been 2 months since I have had 3 friends over, shelter and isolation, living alone on this little island, a rerun of Lost. Yet here we are. Plastic bottles, plastic gloves, real friends, bottling hand sanitizer together. I made it with my partner. Laboratory chemicals, plastic buckets, mix it, bop it, stop it, sanitize that shit. Some of my dear ones, queer kin, coming together to help protect people from this invisible nightmare, unseeable terror, showing the fuck up. Heeding the warning, inflating the life rafts as the boat sinks. Rough chemicals and 775 plastic bottles. Bag it up, pack it up, good luck. Jokes and stories and sharing tea. God damn it, I miss this. Simple act of being together in the same room. A respite from the consuming fear as so much dies and we grieve, yet here we are. Safe creative tactics for gathering. No hugs, but lots of love. We are still here. We are still connected. A dramatic shift, but not a severance. Limbs still attached. Dancing to a broken beat. The speakers blown out. Can't share a smoke, yet here we are. Dancing. Prepping supplies for distribution, not a solution, but a way to help. Somehow, some way. Physically distant, yet here we are. Now, closer.
Thank you, Ali. Yeah, there's something in that just kind of description of the group being together and how much it kind of show, or just how much like you just get the feeling of what, you know, what this community of people are like together, you know. It's great. Let's see, Mikhail.
All right. I feel the percussion of my guilt tempering throughout my bones, a modified Morse code of remorse saying, remember, you are one of the lucky ones. Well, my brain reverbs in response, but you can still feel sad. You're allowed to feel sad. You're allowed to feel things. I've been spending a lot of time in Discords and Slacks, and I never appreciated the irony of the names of the asynchronous communication tools that bring order and activity into my life until this moment. In this moment, I am attempting to vivisect my own inner workings, disassemble the clock and the atom, Dr. Manhattan a solution to my own passions. I love the act of creation, but not as much as I love learning about the act of creation. I love the narrative appropriateness that I'm given the word poiesis the day after I attempt to understand where I want to go next as a writer. I love the fact that I am able to write, able to click, clack, and clamber onto the rising and falling thoughts like debris from an explosion, climb the precipice of my mind, attempting to fill a limited limitlessness, a quantifiable unquantifiable. What a temporary luxury of kinetics, that I can move because I have been moving, that I can write because I have at least found ways to keep writing. What a wonderful name for this artificial non-inertia.
Great. Thank you, Mikhail. Yeah, you know, I hadn't thought about like the names of these like these platforms are using, and then like how like strange and you know, I don't know if it's whether it's fitting or it's just kind of works in antithesis to what is happening now. But it's great. I mean, I think that yeah, sometimes in that observation, I love making those little discoveries like that. It kind of reminds me of you know, because I really like Mitch Hedberg, and he's so, you know, just always questioning things about language and like things what we name things and how we use certain words. It's great. Next, Lishka.
All right. He had a wonderful life playing on the TV. Background. I had an R&B Christmas playlist through a portable blue and white speaker. Ambiance. Thoughtful sentiments intermingling to create a warmth. The apartment was dimly lit and clean. My mom milling around the kitchen, maybe shuffling and readying presents. I made the green bean casserole that Dennis made that everyone liked. He sat on the bedside, book nearby, relaxed, calm, seemingly happy. Beck was there too, helping, interacting, Kiana too, her laughter brightening the room. Sebring came later, as usual with dim, Sebring came later, as usual, with Thomas and Tanisha in tow. I had finally got a present Thomas liked. It was a physical, not practical or educational present. I'm learning. My mom still beat me. Tanisha said, take a picture of Carol and Ian by the tree. I didn't. I knew this was likely our last Christmas all together. I wish I would have taken that picture. I'm still happy we were all there together. Eating good food made with love, sacrificing our minor preferences to be together. A feeling still present in my gut like a golden glowing orb. We were all trying.
Great, thank you. Yeah, feeling in my gut like a golden glowing orb. I know. So let's see, we got a couple more people. So we got actually one more person. Does anybody let's see, H. Schafer, sorry, I can you remind me what your first name is? You know, sometimes I can't see with the
Anne.
Anne Schafer. Okay, Anne. So all right, Anne, would you like to share?
Okay. In the first weeks of shelter in place, I would visit a hawk who perched on the highest branch of the old oak. My soul would lift and my eyes would sink into the comfort of their sockets, and I would watch and wonder what the birds saw and if it felt, and whether birds in general noticed a human pandemic. I squinted and peered and fantasized that in these next months on daily walks, we would get to know each other, he and I, and soon this majestic bird would be waiting eagerly for my morning appearances. He would sit or he would soar off over the field. They closed the parks for a month. When I returned, the branch, old and brittle, had cracked and slid to the ground. The hawk, misplaced or absent by choice, was absent. During that month, I walked past the park. On the closed sign, a bluebird perched. Twice when I passed it, perched on the closed sign. I knew it wasn't taunting, as birds don't taunt, but then hawks don't eagerly wait either. As I sat in the sun in the background, summoning courage, as I sat in the sun in my backyard, summoning courage, achieving moments when the tightness in my chest lifted above the sinking, jostling stomach, the crows came to hunt nesting materials. Neighbors cursed the messy nests they had abandoned and the superfluous ones they would start, and as the crows scooped mud from my yard, I fantasized about making them my pets. The day they opened the park, the day I saw the old brittle branch felled and the hawk fled, a jubilee of COVID sparrows crisscrossed my path, veering and turning, not stopping, not touching earth or the brush around me, but snatching insects in midair. Love filled me as the heat sliding down my legs and warming my calves and ankles. Fear ached in my throat, misplaced my saliva, and weighted my arms. I trudged on the earth as the birds filled the cold, cold sky.
Well, thank you, Anne. Yeah, I love how live those birds feel in this piece, and like, you know, the kind of symbolism it takes in this piece. Great, thank you. Would anyone else like to share? Oh, I see Logan is jumped in. Let's see. All right, Logan.
All right, thanks. Into the bin, its polka dots of ancient gum, I dropped a dozen unused copies of Julia de Burgos. Not the sophomores nor I had it in us to fake a lesson. We murmured on about what we might do with the extra time, and even Yatzinia lowered her voice, bowed her head. Sobrante, the leftovers. There's plenty uncertainty left over here. There is nowhere to go, literally no park in Sobrante Park. At least the liquor store is essential. They have a crate of apples and 3 aisles of Cheetos. And that's where I got.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you for those details. Those minor details of the store, you know, I mean, can do so much, because the thing is that, like, it brings up memories for other people because they know exactly what these stores look like, you know. Thank you. And thank you to everyone in the comment section that's been jumping in. I know we can't applaud and we can't see each other, but like showing that love in the chat room has been, you know, great. All right. Would anyone else like to share what they wrote? Let's see. Anyone?
Jason, this is John O'Shea.
John, yes.
Believe it or not, I have been writing while you were
Awesome.
talking.
Yeah.
And so if I could share my short thing, then maybe somebody else would like to afterwards.
Yeah, let's do. Yeah, John from the Asian Art Museum here, doing helping us with the tech today. Thank you.
Then we were in Kauai. Chickens, roosters, friends, the beach, the sky, our family. Together at a friend party, my college punk rock crush to senior human status. We are now 1 year past 100 years, I think. Now we talk through silver screens, even as we shut ourselves in boxes. Chickens running wild somewhere, and we dream of life outside of a box, to see the sky and chase the chickens.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thanks, John. Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's great. It's really interesting and fascinating to see all the different ways that, you know, all of you are kind of expressing what this experience is. You know, I mean, there's similarities, but there's also like these fresh new ways that we're seeing what this is looking like for people. And this is like, it's really great. All right. Anyone else before we move on? Anyone? I don't want to pressure nobody, but but if you're, you're feeling like you want to, just not sure, feel free to take the leap. All right. Well, let's see. Oh, did we see one more person? Linda. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's Linda and Anita. Sorry. Linda. Okay, so Linda and Anita. How about we go with Linda first and then Anita?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Okay. Paella and white wine, Japanese cheesecake and Prosecco. My 69th birthday. Who knew it would mark the beginning of whatever this is and the end of everything else? I've always said I'm never lonely when I'm alone, until now. Sadness sits in my shoulders, just thinking about the hugs I can no longer give and the kisses I can no longer receive. That's as far as I got.
Oh, great, thank you. Sadness, they brought in the sadness sitting in the shoulders. Yep.
Yeah.
Great.
But I do have a question.
Yes.
What do people do when they get stuck?
Sometimes you just, there's a lot of different techniques some people use to get out of it. What I've heard people do is just to write "I'm stuck," and just keep writing "I am stuck" until you're not stuck anymore. But there's sometimes it's just I think in a situation like this, we're in a class, and you have this amount of time to do it, so you just sometimes try to write your way out of it. But like if you're just at home alone, sometimes maybe just take a break, come back to it. But I think you just got to try different things just to yeah. See, Dr. Seuss would put on a silly hat when creatively blocked. So it's all about kind of switching things up for you, and just kind of get you into a different mode of thinking, of being, of feeling. Maybe you want to put on your silly hat, a jacket. Just kind of like sit on the other side of the room. Something. You might want to think of different things that trip up the brain a little.
Okay. I like that. I'm stuck. I am stuck. I am stuck.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Anita.
Hi, I'm just going to share just a couple of lines that I have because I like the beginning. For us ladies, it was that time of the month again. No, not that one. The other one, when we gathered to feast, eyes, stomach, and mind during our monthly lunchtime book group meeting. And then February 28th, the book was It's Just a Movie. The place, my home, the food inspired by love and the book, spicy jerk chicken, Swiss chard and rice, coconut bread, fresh fruit with creme fraiche. Little did we know that on that date, it would be our last time we would meet together in person. So it's just rough, and I think I'll put on a silly hat and keep on going.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Thank you. Yeah, it's a great beginning right there. That's the thing. It's like you set up this thing that's just like, and I got the feeling I can smell the food and I can feel what that kind of is, but then there's something else happening. It's great. You're setting up a contrast. That's great. All right. Before we move on, let's see. M. DeGraff, sorry, I can you remind me what your first name is again? Apologies.
Madi.
Mari, yeah.
Yes. Okay, I'll try to be faster. The The restaurant was filled with steam. An open kitchen, the smell of samosas and roasting vegetables permeating and creating warm pockets of coziness in our corner table. The dark hair and gleaming face of the owner, a familiar and welcome host, as he sets down 2 tall mango lassies, beaded glasses with condensation. He hugs us both, my husband a little longer, pressing his palms together, bowing. The dining room is full, tables conversing and sharing wine, burgundy liquid swilled, laughter. Many know his face, recognize him, and call him over. The black and white photographs on the walls capture images from across the globe. Where doesn't matter. My hands grasp the fork, metal warming in my palm. I take a bite and let the flavor and spices wash through my mouth, comforting, hot. Muddy waters falls from the speakers, spilling blues around our tiny island, floating. To end the meal, he places a tiny copper bowl filled with pastel licorice, rattling. One small grain explodes on the tongue, a moment of fizzy perfection. Leaving, we don't know it may be the last time we see him for many months. His bright eyes curve as he smiles his goodbye.
Thank you, Mai. Yeah, I really like those like small details that appear in the piece. It's great. I mean, it just kind of, I think a lot of times like what we see says a lot about, you know, how we view, you know, kind of the world. And there's so many just really, really intimate details that came about. All right. Yeah, thank you so much. This is great. Really, really enjoyed listening to so many of these poems. I wanted to give some time to do some Q&A, but before we leave, if anyone's feeling like I want to read a piece, if not, you know, I'll make space for it. If not, we'll move on to Q&A. All right. So, okay, so we'll move on to Q&A. Let's see. Let's use the Q&A chat box. And if you have any questions before we leave for today, about anything we talked about anything that, you know, about what was discussed in the lecture, or just anything that's been kind of weighing on you as far when it comes to writing, yeah, feel free to drop them in the Q&A box. So if you want to ask me any questions, yeah, feel free to do that as well. And while y'all are thinking of questions, I thought I'd, you know, share a couple book recs. All right. Mikhail, what's one book, not necessarily your favorite, you wish more people knew about? Actually, this is, I got a couple of books like that, actually. I think this year I read 2 books, or one book that you know, I got to judge a contest for San Francisco State, and you know, we were supposed to do a reading this year and announce the winner and everything, and you know, if we didn't get a chance to do that because everything happened. So the book I chose for this contest was this book right here called Spectra by a poet named Ashley Tolliver, who's originally from San Francisco but moved to Oregon. This is an amazing book, and I don't, you know, it's great. And I wish more people knew about this book. And you know, I think it's just kind of amazing. It's another book right here that's a couple years old that I read when I was in grad school, called Mistaking the Sea for Green Fields by a poet named Ashley Capps. I read this in grad school when I was back in 2011, in 2010, this is a while ago. And I love this book like so much. It's great. So those 2 books I wish more people knew about. Mishka asks, how long did it take to actualize my books? Okay, so it took a long time. I published my first book when I was like 33, and it took me another 6 years to publish the next book. So I mean, but I'm also a very slow writer, and that could just be me. and stuff. All right. And Anita, I will type the names of the book. Actually, yeah, I'll type the names of the book in a bit. Maybe even send you all a list later on. Linda, have you written anything personally about the current anti-Asian racism going on? At the moment, no, I actually haven't been writing. I think it's something I'm trying to, after I came out with my last book last year in 2019, I made kind of this conscious decision that I didn't want to do any writing for a while. And it's taken me a while to get kind of back into it. And so, you know, for me, trying to write about current events, it takes, again, I'm already a slow writer. So it takes me a lot of time to figure out how I want to approach it. And, you know, it's something that, like, you know, I think it's something I guess I think I'm struggling to really figure out how to talk about. Let's see. Any editing tips? Do you write way too much and then edit? How much you change? Any rules of thumb? You know, there's no, when it comes to editing, like I tend to like add more than I subtract. But like it changes for any situation. Like I think, you know, we're always in the process of editing poems, you know, and at some point you just kind of have to walk away. Like there's a point where I can start to edit too much or change things too much, and I lose something. I feel like I lose something that was there at the beginning that doesn't exist anymore, even though it might be a more structurally sound piece. So I think it's just like there's a lot of like having to figure out a balance over time. You know, I think you have to just kind of, you know, always be checking in with yourself around the editing process and just kind of making sure, you know, when you're going too far that you know to pull yourself back, and, you know, when you might want to be pushing a little bit more than that. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have like a great answer for that, but I think that just, it's, you know, writing is just always an ongoing process, you know. Sometimes I've edited things in the past that have already been published. You know, but like it's all part of the act of making, you know, and that act of making is something that you're doing constantly. Hope that answers it. Will you be doing future workshops like this in the other 3 tenets you use? Lishka, yes. I've been working on it. I've been working as an arts organizer for the last couple of years. And I'm really feeling the urge to come back to teaching in some way, shape, or form. And, you know, I've just been occasionally teaching workshops here and there, but I started developing this because I wanted to kind of develop a workshop based around the tenets that I use. And so, yes, I will be doing future workshops. Maybe if there's a way maybe if you want to jump on the email list, we can find a way to make that happen. All right. During this writing exercise, and it says, during this writing exercise, I found my editor function attempting to take over or a couple of multiple ideas begging for attention, and the ideas on how to turn off the editor. Geez, I think I struggle with this too, of trying to do too much when, you know, you're just trying to get things out. And I think maybe at times, sometimes we have to give ourselves the space to not be a perfectionist, or to not be, to allow ourselves to be sloppy and unwieldy, and just allow ourselves to express, to write, you know, however it comes out. And I think that, you know, coming back, you can always come back. You can always work on it again. And Barbara asks, in the two poems you shared, there's an arc or movement towards what could be didactic but isn't. I mean, there are embedded lessons about racism, immigration, patriarchy, but how do they manage to be deeply connected to important issues and yet so engaging? And for me, I think it's like, because it doesn't attempt to answer anything. It's, you know, it gives it the space for, you know, for that unveiling to happen. You know, I think I've gotten to learn a lot more about visual art over the last couple of years since working at Kearny Street Workshop, which was never my thing. But I mean, I think about it like, you know, when you look at installations or, you know, a lot of times what visual arts do, it's like you put two images against each other, and that reveals something, you know, that and you allow that to be, you know, it's not an answer. It's something opens up that allows you, that opens you up to a way of seeing, or a way of you know, yeah, a way of seeing things new. And I think that's what both of those poems do. You know, it just allows you to look at the world in a different way. And you know, and I think it becomes a powerful way of, a powerful form of action, you know, rather than saying that this rather than trying to be something that answers a question, or trying to be something that states a purpose, or that tries to accomplish something that's towards towards a political action or anything like that. Which doesn't mean, like, you know, poems that do that are any or worse or anything like that. I find this to be just as powerful and meaningful. Okay, we have only a couple of minutes. We only have like 3 minutes left, so you know, I probably should start wrapping this up and do a bit of our closing. You know, I want to thank all of you for just, you know, being a part of this today, and, you know, sharing yourselves, you know, being a part of this with me, you know, and it's really, like, you know, I'm really thankful for all of you doing this. And yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, please feel free to, if you have further questions, you know, you can reach out to me over social media. Yeah, I'm on Twitter, I'm on the gram, I am on Facebook, but I don't like Facebook, so I rarely engage in that. But you can engage with me over social media, and yeah, I will probably try to be doing more workshops, and yeah, and also, yeah, if you haven't seen it already, this is my book, Locus, and yeah, it's off Omnidawn Publishing, and it's probably better if you buy it through Omnidawn and they'll mail it out to you and stuff rather than Amazon. So, okay, thank you all so much. And